Hi, I'm Josh Bazar, third generation Pearl expert from Imperial Pearl. You know, one of the most common questions that I get is, what's the difference between a cultured pearl and a natural pearl? Well, the difference is a natural pearl forms in the ocean, has never ever been tampered with or handled by man. The moment that man touches that oyster while it's producing the pearl, it becomes considered a cultured pearl. With natural pearls, they're so incredibly rare that there really is no industry for the natural pearls. When you think about it, maybe only 1 out of 15,000 oysters produces a natural pearl. So to be able to offer, a consistent variety of natural pearl is absolutely impossible, as each and every single one is completely unique. They're very rare, very beautiful gems. Another huge rumor that I kind of wanted to dispel is how are natural pearls formed? The rumor is a grain of sand is inside of, the oyster to create that pearl and starts the pearl growing process. Well, not true. The truth of the matter is, inside the pearl oyster, on each sides of the valve, when you open them up, and I'll grab an oyster right here. So there's a mantle tissue that lines the valve of this oyster, and there's usually, 2 valves always. Oyster is a bivalve. So what happens is, on that tissue, it's made up of cells. Those cells are called epithelial cells. Now, when a little critter gets in there, such as a crab, or maybe a fish swimming by, and punctures the lining of those cells, it triggers a defense mechanism in the oyster itself to start repairing and rebuilding. So after the tissue is punctured, the oyster starts distributing nacre into a pocket, which is called a pearl pocket. And that's when the natural pearl begins to form. And I mean, it's like winning the lottery, because how often does that crab crawl inside that oyster and all of those events take place to yield that pearl? Now, so no grain of sand. That rumor, forget about it. Cultured pearls, on the other hand, is when our farmers raise these oysters from little tiny babies up until the point where they're capable of starting to produce a pearl, and then we'll perform a non-invasive operation to begin that pearl growing process by putting what we call a nucleus into the pearl growing section of the oyster to start that growth, kind of kickstart it, so you don't have to rely on natural events, but you still get the same type of pearl at the end. That pearl is going to be made up of what is known as aragonite, little tiny crystals of calcium carbonate that that form on layer upon layer upon layer upon layer around that nucleus that's implanted into that oyster to create that beautiful look, that shine and that luster. And the luster is really reliant on how tightly compact those little layers of crystals are. So when you want to get a pearl with top-notch luster, you have to, that pearl will have those calcium carbonate crystals lined so tightly on the outermost layers that it forms the higher luster. And then sometimes when we have larger pearls, they have much lower luster. And the reason is because it takes so many more crystals of calcium carbonate to layer on top of each other to create the surface of that larger pearl. So the odds of the composition of those crystals on the outermost layers being tightly compacted becomes lower and lower as the pearl grows larger and larger. So to find a large pearl with immaculate luster, that is something so special. So when looking for a large strand of pearls, ensure that you're going to get a large strand with high luster, then you know you have something extremely rare. So right there is the difference between a natural pearl, a cultured pearl, and how pearls get their luster.